Hello, this is Sharon Mistretta, and welcome to the fifth in a series of lessons on how to create a 3-question quiz in Scratch. So when we last left off, I had created with you question 1 and question 2 and asked you to create question 3. So what you should have right now is you should have a question 3, and you should make sure that you have the Q3 in each of these drop-down menus. You're showing Q3 and hiding the rest. Now, you might wonder why I didn't use one list and then just filled it according to what question I'm on. You can do that. Sometimes when I'm developing for students, what I do is I use blocks to exercise a certain type of skill. And what I wanted to do is to have you show and hide the lists and have 3 separate lists that you're using instead of one, but you very definitely can use one and just keep track of what current question you are on and then fill that one list accordingly. But right now I'm just using 3 lists. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over and expand this, and you're going to see that when I click the block, it's going to invoke it. And you might notice that it has a kind of a yellow glow around it, and that means that that's what's currently running. So you're going to see that I have my hello message, and it's going to set my values back of my variables. The beauty of Scratch also is that I can click on a particular block, and that's why I like to create blocks instead of one long series of code, because you can test that block just by clicking on it. So you can see that I have Q1 over on the left-hand side. I'm going to click on question 2 right now, and there's question 2. And then I'm going to click on the block that invokes question 3, and there's question 3. So that's an easy way also. When you're creating these little events, you can also have the ability to test them separately. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the green. And when you want to make sure that all action is stopped while you are coding, then you just click the stop button. And also, as a reminder, always do a regular save. Command S or Control S. There's one more message that I want to do, one more event that I want to do. And I'm going to do a when I receive, and I'm going to create a new message. And that message is going to be done when I'm absolutely positively done with the entire program. So when done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hide all of the lists because I want to clear the palette, so to speak. So I'm going to hide list 1, hide list 2. This is when I culminate my program, and hide list 3. I'm going to hide all the lists. If you recall, in my worksheet, I do have a conclusion of the program message, so I'm going to copy that out of there, and I'm noting that I'm choosing it for 5 seconds. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into the looks tab, and I'm going to do a say. I'm going to tap inside. Instead of hello, I'm going to say thank you for taking this quiz, and I'm going to do it for 5 seconds. And then also, if you recall, I have asked you to make sure that the sprite finishes, the teacher sprite finishes in a different spot. So I had said -168, -64. So what I want him to do is I'm going to go into the motion, and I'm going to have him glide. And the seconds is the duration of the glide. So if you want to have him glide a little bit slower, you'd increase those seconds. But then I want him to do a -168 and a -64. -168 and a -64. Okay? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to save. And I'm just going to click that. Thank you for taking this quiz. And then he should glide over. There he goes. Okay. So that is the done. So I've created all of my little routines that I want to use. And there's one very big routine that I need to create. And that is the ask the question. I need to call upon which question I want to do. But if you notice, when I click on the green flag, it's going to do a whole lot of nothing because all I have it really doing is saying hello, but I haven't called these routines yet. I haven't called question 1, question 2, question 3 are done. and they're waiting and listening. So you can consider them as listening. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the edit and get that small stage layout again. And now we are going to go into the real guts of the program, so to speak. So now I am going to create another subroutine, and that event is going to be when I receive. I'm going to move this guy out of the way a little bit. Okay. So when I receive, and what I am calling it is ask user. I need to ask the user what the answer is. So ask user. Okay. So when I ask user, now I had said to you that the if statements are the lifeblood of programming. I'm going to query the current question. So you know right now that I have set current question at the very beginning. When I click my green flag, I've set it to 1, so I'm at the very beginning. So now what I'm going to do, I have 3 options that could be correct, a 1, a 2, or a 3, but I'm also going to leave room in my if statements that if it's not a 1, 2, or 3, for whatever reason that might be, then I'm going to display an error to myself. And what that's going to be is that's going to be an error that is never going to be seen by my user. It's only going to be seen by me. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to drag over, sorry, that's my door. I'm going to drag over if statements so that I can query this data. So I'm going to go into the control section, and I'm going to drag over an if then else, which is a little bit bigger than what we've used before because I have to ask it several questions. But now just take a look at what I'm doing because I have to test for a 1, 2, or 3. So I am going to drag over 3 if then else's. I'm going to put 1 in the else here. I'm going to populate my else's so that I'm setting the framework, so to speak, for my testing. So this empty corridor right here is going to be where I'm going to test to see if the current question is 1. Else, I'm going to test it if it's 2. Else, I'm going to test it what to do if it's 3. And this last else, I'm going to display a message to myself that says something went wrong. And that is very beneficial to do when you are coding, because your user, if your program works, your user is never going to see it, but it saves you a tremendous amount of time in debugging or correcting your program because it catches it and it tells you that the current question value is wrong. And that really helps you a lot when you're doing what's called debugging, which means finding errors. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask it my questions. And I am going to go over to my operators because I need to do this mathematically. And I'm going to do this equals. So I'm going to nudge it right into the little space where I'm going to ask a question. Let's populate all 3 right now. I'm just going to do it. So it's going to be equals 1, equals 2, or equals 3. But what is equals 1, equals 2, or equals 3? It's going to be current question. So if current question equals a 1, I'm going to do one thing. If current question is a 2, I'm going to do something else. And if current question is a 3, okay? So I have set up my framework, so to speak, of what I want to do for question 1, question 2, or question 3. So now all I have to do is I have to populate my question on the screen. So I am going to go over to my events and I'm going to broadcast question 1. It's going to paint it for me. It's going to put it on the screen. But then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to tell it, look, the correct answer for my, and I didn't create that variable yet. Make a variable. and I'm going to call it correct answer, because it can only be a 1, 2, or a 3. So I am going to set correct answer. Now it happens to be for question 1, which is right here, the numbering system of base 8 with digits 0 through 7 happens to be octal. Okay, so my correct question is going to be 3. Okay. Correct answer, excuse me, is going to be 3. If it's a 2, I am going to broadcast. Question 2, so it's going to populate that list for me, and I'm going to set the correct answer, and I'm going to test for this later. But now in question 2, the numbering system is binary, so the correct answer is 1. That's what I expect from the user to be correct. And then lastly, I'm going to broadcast question 3. So it's going to populate that for me. And I'm going to set the correct answer. I'm going to set a variable to compare it to what they enter. So set correct answer, and that correct answer for question 3 is the hexadecimal system, and that correct answer is number 2. So if the current question is not 1, 2, or 3, it's going to come down here and fall into this error. And it's helpful if you put that there in if statements for yourself. So the if statement, the first corridor of the if statement, is only going to happen if this condition is true. If current question is 1, it will invoke the broadcast question 1 and set my correct answer to 3. Else, if you have to ask another question, you can't rely on it to remember, you have to tell it. Else, if, another if statement, ask another question. Is current question equal to 2? If it's true, it's going to broadcast question 2 and set the correct answer to 1. Else, another question. Else, if current question equals 3. If that's true, it's going to broadcast question 3. Else, I've done something wrong and this error message is to me. So I'm going to save that. Now, this particular routine is going to rely on a lot more code, and this is a substantial block for you to code. So I'm going to end this video here, and then we're going to continue in the next video.